Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's lesson is division using the area model. And our goal is that we will be dividing using the area model. So we're moving on from multiplication to division. Our two vocab words is first, I'm going to add the division symbol right there, is we just need to be really familiar with what our words are when we talk about division. So we've talked a lot about what the answer is in a division problem. It's called a quotient. Okay, but we need to know what these two words are. So this is the word we're dividing. So, I'm sorry, this is the number we're dividing. The number we're dividing is called the dividend. So the dividend with a D. So the 10 here is my dividend, because again, it's the number I'm dividing, dividend. The number of that I'm dividing it by is called my divisor. So we're going to be using those words for the next couple of weeks. So if you keep this in your notes, you'll have them. So again, the dividend, sorry, that's a D, is what the number I'm dividing. This is the groups I'm dividing it into, and my quotient is my answer. Okay, a quick reminder that will help us tonight is if we remember when we multiply with zeros, kind of our trick, I underline my non-zeros and multiply them. And then I add my extra zeros. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, which gives me 20,000. I underline my non-zeros. 12 times 5 is 60. And I add my extra zeros, which is 3 more. This one's a little trickier. 26 times 3 I might not know, so you might need to do some side work. You could use the area model or the algorithm. I'm going to do the algorithm. What is 26 times 3? Well, 3 times 6 is 18, and I carry my 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 78. So I have 78, and I'm going to add 3 zeros. So remembering that will help you a lot today. Okay, we have tons of steps tonight, and I apologize. There are so many steps. So the first step is we're going to draw a tall rectangle. In 4th grade, you drew a long rectangle, but now we're going to draw a tall rectangle. Then we're going to write the divisor on top. So you can refer back to what the divisor is. Okay, this is kind of the big one. We're going to estimate what number can work without going over. And when you do this, I like to underline the dividend as I'm working. So I'm going to be underlining the dividend as I'm working, and then I'm going to be adding zeros. So this is a little tricky, but wait and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, then we're going to be writing the partial, remember partial means part of, quotient, which is answer. So we're going to write part of the answer on the side. And then we're going to multiply and write the answer inside. Okay, then we're going to subtract the answer from the dividend. And then we're going to continue to repeat steps 3 through 6, until there's nothing left. And then we're going to add the partial quotients. Okay, I went through that pretty fast, but it's because I want to show you what this looks like. I think that once the steps are just going to be there for you to follow as you're doing the work. Okay, so the steps are just going to be there for you to follow as you're actually doing the work. Okay, so here is my first problem. Okay, my first problem looks like this. So I'm going to go back to my steps. Step 1 is I'm going to draw my tall rectangle. Okay, that's really tall, so you might not be able to see it. Okay, step 2 is I'm going to write the divisor on top. Well, if I look back to this to help me, the divisor is the one outside. So for this problem, my divisor is the 6. Okay, step 3 says I'm going to estimate what number can work without going over. And I'm going to be underlining the dividend, which means I need to write the dividend. So what's my dividend? 1,236. So I'm going to write that over here. 1,236. Okay, so I'm going to underline the dividend. Can 6 go into 1? No. Can 6 go into 12? Yes. 6 can go into 12. How many times? Well, 6 can go into 12 2 times. But because there's 2 extra spots outside, it's actually going to be 200. 6 can fit into this 200 times. So I'm going to write that partial quotient or answer on the side. So 6 can fit into that 200 times. And then step 5 says I'm going to multiply and write the answer inside. So what is 6 times 200? Well, 6 times 2 is 12, and then the 2 zeros. Okay, step 6 is I'm going to subtract the answer from the dividend. So this answer I'm going to subtract over here. And what am I left with? 6 and a 3. Okay, step 7 says I'm going to repeat steps 3 through 6. So let's go back to step 3. Okay, I'm going to underline the dividend and add zeros. Well, can 6 fit into 3? Nope. Can 6 fit into 36? Yes. How many times? Well, it can fit in 6 times. And there's no extra numbers, so I'm not going to add any extra zeros. So I'm just going to say it can fit in 6 times. And step 4 says I write that on the side. Step 5, I'm going to multiply and write the answer right here. So I have, what do I have there? 6 times 6 is 36. Okay, let's see. Step 6, I'm going to subtract this answer from the dividend. So I get 36 equals 0. And then repeat steps 3 through 6 till there's nothing left. Well, there is nothing left. So I can stop. And then it says add my partial quotients. Well, these are my partial quotients, 200 plus 6. I had some extra room in my area model, but that's okay. I can ignore that. So 200 plus 6 equals 206. So my answer is 206. My answer is 206. Okay, so notice how I was really going back to my steps a lot for that problem. These you're probably going to want to keep looking at your steps for every single step. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, this first one looks like this. Okay, so it says I'm going to draw my tall rectangle. I'm sorry, my next one looks like this. I'm going to draw my tall rectangle. Okay, and step 2 says I'm going to write the divisor on top. Well, which one's the divisor? Let's come up here and look. This one's the divisor. So my divisor is 8. Step 3 is that long step. I'm going to estimate what number can work without going over, which means I first need to put my number over here, my dividend. So 4648. Okay, well, can 8 go into 4? No. Can 8 go into 46? Yes. 8 can fit into 46 5 times. 6 times would be too much because 6 times 8 is 48. So 8 can fit into 46 5 times, but since there's 2 numbers after, it's going to actually be 500 times. So I just did step 4. I wrote that on the side. My partial quotient's 500. Step 5 says I'm going to multiply and write this answer on the inside. So 8 times 5 is 40, and add 2 extra zeros gives me 4,000. Step 6 says I'm going to subtract the answer from the dividend. So I'm going to take this and subtract from my dividend. And I get 8, 4, 6. Okay, step 7 says I'm going to repeat the steps 3 through 6 until I have nothing left. Well, I have something left, so I have to go back to step 3 and continue working until I have nothing left. So step 3 says I'm going to estimate how many times 8 can fit into this. Well, 8 can't fit into 6. Can 8 fit into 64? Yes, 8 can fit into 64 8 times. But because there's an 8 out here, that means it's going to be actually 8 plus an extra spot, which is going to be 80. Okay, so step 4 says write it on the side. I did. Step 5 is multiply and write the answer inside. 8 times 8 is 64, and add my 0. Step 6 says I'm going to subtract this answer from my dividend. And step 7 says I'm going to repeat the steps until there's nothing left. Well, there is something left, so I have to go back to step 3. Okay, how many times can 8 fit into 8? Okay, hopefully we know that's just going to be 1. And there's no extra number, so it's just going to be 1. And then I go to step 4, and I wrote it on the side. Step 5 says I'm going to multiply and write the answer. So 8 times 1 is 8. Step 6 says I'm going to subtract from the dividend. Step 7 says I'm going to repeat the steps, but I have nothing left, so I don't need to repeat them. So step 8 says add them. Add your partial quotients. Well, I have 500 plus 80 plus 1. So 500 plus 80 plus 1 equals 581, and that is my answer, 581. Okay, so let's try some together. Okay, looking at your worksheet, what I want you to notice first is on number 2, you're going to have to add the division sign. Okay? Okay, so for number 1, there's my problem. So step 1 says draw your tall rectangle. Step 2 says write your divisor on top, which is my 4. Step 3 says that you're going to be writing your dividend on the side, and you're going to ask yourself how many times it can go in. So 4 can fit into 2. No. 4 can fit into 22 5 times, but there's 2 spaces, so it's actually going to be 500. And that's step 4. Step 5 says to multiply them. So 5 times 4 is 20, and I'm going to add my 2 zeros. Step 6 says I'm going to subtract this from here. Step 7 says I'm going to go back to step 3 and start over. So can 4 fit into 4? Yep. 4 can fit into 4 one time, but since there's a 0 there, an empty space, I'm going to say it's a 0. So there's going to be 10. Okay, 4 times 10 is 40. And then I'm going to subtract. And I'm going to keep going until I have nothing left. 4 can fit into 8 twice. So I put a 2 there. 2 times 4 is 8. And then I'm going to subtract, and I have nothing left, which means I can stop, and I'm going to add up my partial products. So I'm going to come up here and maybe do it. 500 plus 10 plus 2 gives me 215. So my answer is 512. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to do the next one with you tonight because our video is getting really long. You do have 2 problems for homework. I know this is really tricky, but give it the best shot you can, and know that we're going to spend a lot of days practicing. And then please rate yourself. Okay, have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.